I started with the idea literally of a man comes home to his house and the door is wide open. And like, what does he do next? And having been in the media myself, I know the mindset on both sides. So I was able, that's where I really started. At the time, I was working in a basement office of our house that was, you went through this creepy unfinished basement to get to this tiny little room that was absolutely freezing in winter because it was basically planks on dirt. So I had a space heater right at me, and I had all my notes just fluttering on the walls, just everywhere, like questions, literally like things like, I remember making a I got very amazing Amy in my details. So it was like I had made a joke in the book about how when they started the bar, Nick and Go found a whole bunch of old Zima. And I was like, well, I have a note like, what year was Zima produced? Would this work with the timeline? The timeline has to be right. And Nick was always Nick from the very beginning. I knew who he was, which was basically me. I mean, he was a guy from Missouri who went to New York to work in the magazines and thought that was really cool, and then got laid off and had a huge crisis of who am I and what am I going to do, and what's going to happen next. And so I had him down pretty cold. Originally, I was writing the whole thing from Nick's point of view. So throughout the whole thing, the the media, I think I was playing that there might be a trial eventually, and you would only find out what happened at the very end. Kaboom, and we're out. And I realized about halfway through, I who was this woman? Like I wanted more from her than a chapter at the end in her voice. Like she was growing in my head. I mean, she was really coming to life of this baffling idea of who would do this to someone and how do you make it feel realistic. And so then I had got the idea for the diary, of Amy's point of view through the diary, and that scared the pants off me. The idea of doing that, because I thought if I commit to a diary thing and it does not work, the whole book doesn't work. If people aren't believing that this is Amy, nothing else is gonna happen. And so I began writing that, and it's strange to have a whodunit where you find out who done it in the middle of the book. And I was sort of faced with this, the chapters are, I think, boy meets girl, boy loses girl, girl gets boy, or something like that, to show the different evolution of where they're at, and play with that sort of romantic comedy vibe. And I wanted to find out what he would think and turn it into kind of more of a cat and mouse, game told by two narrators who aren't reliable or particularly likable, which, believe me, my publisher pointed out in a very kind way. Like, just so you know, you've written a whodunit where you tell who done it smack in the middle, and you got narrators that I don't think anyone's going to entirely root for. But then it really turned out people did root for them. They really did come down on Team Nick or Team Amy. We just released a 10-year anniversary edition, and I was like, let's not just re-release it, let's put like show all my mistakes, because everyone wants to see how you work. And I always tell people I work by writing and rewriting and rewriting and just figuring it out. Like I can write my notes all I want, but I'm going to go off track, as one should, I think. If you hit every formula point, you're a formulaic writer. So I like to figure it out. So the original Amazing Amy was the product of two parents one was a feminist sociologist, and one was a group think new age guy who got married and decided to combine forces and create the ultimate bespoke dating service. And Amy worked for that, and that started colliding with it. And I wrote tons of that, and it felt way too on the nose. And so I just got rid of that. But I was definitely figuring out her voice while I was doing that. She kind of invaded my space, as well she should. And I knew immediately someone like that had to be incredibly righteous, always sure her judgment was the correct one, but also incredibly precise in her vengeance, and smart enough to think of every little step along the way. I mean, I had an Amy journal I wanted to almost print it like with extra things she had thought about, like footnote 22. By the way, you cannot date ballpoint ink past 1984. Like I researched this, that luckily I did not put in the book, but I knew she had to be really sharp, funny enough that people wouldn't immediately be, repelled by her. I wanted her to be someone who was not remotely self-aware, because she would have had a moment where she said, "What the fuck am I doing?" But still funny, so you can sort of see why the two of them originally came together. I got to the reveal where Nick learns, where we all learn the truth of what's happening, and I had no idea what I was going to do with her. She ends up going to the Ozarks because I went on a writing retreat with my best friend to the Ozarks, and he was reading, and he was like, "Oh, like I remember doing that." Like it was just it was all there for me, and I couldn't. And so then I was like, "Okay, we've got grifters in the Ozarks. Maybe does Desi come back in? Because I'm fascinated by this Desi thing, and that could be, And then yeah, I got to the end, and I tried different endings. The ending in the book was the ending in the movie, and we always knew that that was going to be the case. David Fincher and I both liked it that way, and if you know his movies, you know that there's not usually the happy. It's not a big happy ending guy, thank goodness. But I did play it with different. So I played with one where the Ozark grifters come back and resurface because they've seen footage of Amy, and they come back to blackmail her, and maybe she kills them or something. I didn't get very far into too many of the other endings because I just knew I didn't want Amy ending up in prison. And I liked that idea that Nick talks about at the end, that the two of them are storytellers and their stories don't work without the other, that she is the ultimate foil for him and vice versa, and they are somehow in a horrific and disturbing way meant to be together. This next book I'm almost done with, and it doesn't have anything to do with Gone Girl, but I feel like I'm ready to revisit now. And it was funny because today is the 10-year anniversary of Gone Girl being published. And I was in the shower and I was going, wait, in Gone Girl chronology, how old will their baby be now? And I was like, well, they're a 5-year anniversary when it starts. I'm like, that kid's about to be 16. This is amazing. I want to see what this child looks like, that's raised by Amy and Nick. Like, that feels chilling to me. I would not mind revisiting it at this point. It feels like it's been long enough. And I love the book I'm working on, which is another dark psychological thriller, that's kind of about mind think gone awry, group think gone awry, given this environment right now. And lots of death. But I feel like after this, I feel like my mind would be open again, and I really would love to see after what they got themselves into, where what that family looks like now. As he says, we are the definition of a nuclear family. Yeah, so that was part of, that was built into my contract for selling it. That was that I would write the first draft. Having watched movies my whole life, and I was the nerdy kid who, but then the days before internet, would mail away my $5 to get a screenplay that I wanted to read. So I always been, it always felt very organic to me. I felt like I could do it. It didn't feel foreign to me at all because I was so familiar with the structure, and I'm a good critic. Which I think is important. I can be really harsh, which I had to be as you're making that very vast and dense sort of book into a film that works. And but I it was so it was important to me to have that first try, and because I thought I could do it, and I did. For instance, we had offers on Sharp Objects along the way, and they always felt like they were going to turn more into horror films, than what I wanted, and so I always declined those. And this was, I want a chance to do this, and so I wrote the first draft, and then David Fincher, who I will forever adore. He's like my creative muse. Said, read the script and liked it, and we started working together. And I've never, it was really a dream. It was one of those things where I thought, I know I'm too lucky right now. I know he's protecting me from a lot because he's a 800-pound gorilla, and but not until you're released in the wild do you entirely realize that. But I feel like it's really important to keep your characters until something is cast. I feel like that's, to me, it's like I want it to be like the character in the book because obviously that worked. So let's just write it as the characters in the book. But we did have Ben Affleck in mind pretty early on, and we did have the really amazing luxury of having about 6 weeks of rehearsals with all the actors. Sometimes I did full table reads. Sometimes, Ben and Rosamund together, and that was when I could start fine tuning. And Ben is so funny. Like I felt Nick was starting. I was giving him a few more lines that were, that matched him, and so that was really a lucky thing. It was amazing to hear the lines because before then it had been me and my husband just reading lines, and it was like, I don't know if it's that this line doesn't work or that we're horrible actors. And so it was good. It was very good to finally see proper actors inhabit these characters. And it was like, okay, this piece does work. We can drop this moment because it feels like we've covered this tone over here, and that really helped me. It really helped me fine tune it a lot. I did a lot of work during that time period.